Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Crane, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Inspiring Projects and Moving Forward Together. Today, you're going to hear from 8 different individuals from around our skating community. And you're going to hear some very inspiring stories of creativity and the power of communities coming together to share some ideas to develop some innovative virtual projects and resources. And you're also going to hear how you can integrate some of these new technologies we all learned during COVID as we move forward. I wanted to say that if you have a question for a specific guest, if you could please add it to the chat and they will respond after their presentation. So let's get started. First, we are going to hear from Benoit Lavoie, and Benoit isn't able to be with us today, but he sends his greetings.
Thank you, Beth. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and then to do a bit of an introduction for these sessions that you're going to have. They're going to be available for you, on the web. I just want to congratulate you for everything that you've done so far, because I think we can say now that we've went through the pandemic. We're towards the end of it. And now we're looking at what we have done. If we look at all of the things related to the virtual events toolkit, we established, we developed it. We had your collaborations to make it work. We needed it at some point right at the beginning during the pandemic. But now I think we can show the world that these tools are going to be useful for more than only the pandemic. So I want to thank you, first of all, for you to be here and then to bring your stories, to share your experience, to make sure that we will grow with everything that you will add to the plate, and to make sure that we will remain consistent in our approach to use these tools where it will become and it will enhance the quality of our products that we have, and also to make sure that we will keep the credibility that is needed for the system overall, like everything we do. So you play an important role into this, and I want to thank you all for being here, and please enjoy all these sessions because they are great, and you have great people who are going to help you with it. And then for me, again, it's the essence. We all volunteer. We're all happy to be together. I think there is a way now that we're going to exchange even more information. So good luck to everyone, and please use the best of it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much to Benoit. And today, our first guest is Sue Lee. And Sue is an ISU judge from Korea. She was the figure skating sport manager at the 2018 Olympic Winter Games in Korea. It's really nice to have you with us today, Sue.
Hi, everyone. Good morning from Seoul. Some good evening from your country. I'm more than happy to be here and tell my little story to you to share the experience, what we've been through for the pandemic seasons, and later on we will develop some more great ideas from all of you. So thank you very much.
Good. Let's start off. Could you tell us what it was like in Korea starting in March 2020? In particular, can you tell us how your skaters, coaches, officials, and competitions were affected by the pandemic?
Actually, in 2020, February, we did the 4 continents championships in Seoul. And right after that, the pandemic, it was so severe. So many ice rinks shut down and offered limited access to only their regional skaters. So most of the skaters are looking for rinks that they have to train. So that was the very difficult part. So until September, there was no competitions, but we did the judges seminar online. So that's our first, application for the pandemic. And after that, on the season, 2021 season, Korean Skating Union, they decided to keep their season as normally as possible. So at the end of the 2020, we had 2 national events, to select the national teams and who will be in, on their Korean teams. So we did like keep season as normal as possible.
Okay, so then we move on to, let's say, 2021, and there wasn't still much possibility for any of us to go to abroad or attend seminars at that time. So tell us a little bit about how you prepared your officials for international examinations at that time.
Yes. In 2021, we have candidates for the ISU examinations as judges and referees. So it's an idea that got from actually Beth, the ISU running team. They introduced us the online practice and meeting. It is possible. So tried for the first time to have a workshop with ISU examinees. Experienced referees and judges got together and helped them to get ready. But actually we focused on pairs more since we didn't have many chances to judge. So it wasn't fully adopted online scoring system, but was manually handled with judging sheets and email video links. And I collected the judges sheets and made the result for the roundtable discussion. Like as you see on the background that I have like protocol. I put it in my hand like that. So yeah, that's how we try to increase them to prepare the examinations. So we organized an online workshop twice before they took the exam, and they were passed. That's the result. The result was good. So I'm so delighted about that. So also in 2022, we did the examinees workshop for technical panel at the time, and they got passed all. So it worked very well.
All right, you must have done an excellent job then. Thank you for that question. Yeah. So if you could take that slide away for a minute for us,
Yes.
please, Elena. Thank you. Oh, the other thing I wanted to think about is that we have people at all different levels. I mean, we don't even also have, we have ISU officials, but we also have lower level officials. And it wasn't easy to train anybody during the pandemic. So how did you work on trying to get new officials at that time?
In 2021, we have new trial judges who wants to be a judge, but there is no competitions and they cannot come. I mean, even if we had, there was limited access of the people who can enter the rings. So they were not allowed to come. So we kind of, it's not broadcast, but we recorded the competitions and show on KSU website, and they saw that events. And then we will have we had kind of online seminar with them all together. So show them how the events go, and then what you need before you start, and then what you have to behave like that, like very basic schedules for them. So as you can see, like GOE, program components, system, and how to read the protocol, how to write even the elements like that. And it was really good chance that it is really difficult to people to get on one place at one time or together. So online worked very good, especially if there was like a student who has to go to school or a mother who had a baby and she carried the baby whole time on her back. So there was a bit interesting moment for us, but it's a good experience for us and good memory for them.
Yeah, it seems like we had that experience well, that not everyone can do things exactly at one time in one place. So it's helpful to people, give them some other
Mhm.
options.
Yes.
What about some plans you have for going forward 2023 and beyond? What ideas do you have for virtual activities?
We will continue to organize online workshops as we've been doing. And I should mention practicing English for especially Asian people. New judges need opportunities to speak in English and listen in English. So it will be great chance for them if we create like joint online practice sessions with experienced models like Canada, USA, or in English speaking countries. If we had a chance to get together and then you know give a feedback or get on great ideas from them, then it will be much great I don't know much great time for them, and then it will help them a lot. So I'd
Mhm.
like to create that kind of worldwide session altogether.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our hope.
And yeah, that sounds like a great idea because it benefits everybody. Because once you get at the international level, we all need to work together and to have the
Mhm.
opportunity to practice together and get used to the terminology and is really a wonderful opportunity. So hopefully
Mhm.
that'll happen, Sue. Um,
Okay.
I'd like to say thanks very much for joining us today, Sue. I really appreciate your willingness to always try new projects, and you're always very methodical and organized about it, but you always have a wonderful sense of humor. So it's always fabulous to work with you. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Our next guest is Janice Hunter, and Janice is an ISU judge and referee from Canada. She's chair of the Officials Assignment and Promotion Committee at Skate Canada. And today, Janice is joining us from a very small island off Vancouver. And great to see you today, Janice.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Beth, and thanks for asking me to chat today to all of you.
Great.
Most of my chatting is going to be about in BC, so go ahead, Beth.
Okay. First of all, I was wondering if you could tell us about the different programs or streams that you have for figure skaters in BC, because everybody doesn't have different streams. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so in Canada, our programs are called STAR and Podium Pathway, and the majority of the skaters are in the STAR program. And these skaters work on assessments from Star 1 to Gold. We used to call them tests, but they're not really. But you might think, for your language, you might think of it as a test. And they also compete in STAR competitions. They were really highly impacted during the pandemic because the assessors, the evaluators, like people like me, were not permitted to go in the rinks. So the skaters were working on their individual assessment level, but they could not be assessed in order to move to the next level. And of course, all the skaters were missing their much loved competition experience. In Canada, the lockdown was really like pretty major. You just didn't go anywhere, and you certainly didn't mix with a lot of people. So the skaters had no chance to show their skills, connect with skaters from other clubs, and have that special experience of being or getting competition ready. So each province had different COVID restrictions, but the common theme was, as I said, skaters could not travel, numbers permitted in the arenas were really restricted. So holding a traditional in-person competition was simply not permitted.
Okay, so what did you do then to keep everybody engaged?
Well, in the BC section of Skate Canada, so that's where I live, we are fortunate to have Ted Barton as our executive director. So his vision of planning and hosting virtual competitions just took off like a rocket. The pandemic just like fueled him, I would say, to get that going. All the skaters in BC were able to have several competition experiences throughout the pandemic, And with the help of many players across the country, many virtual competitions took place. So this really expanded to the whole country. And the upside was that for the officials' point of view, officials from all across the country, and we are a large country, they could sign on to officiate at events that were not in their region. And the skaters were judged by many officials who they would not normally have present at their competition. And then Skate Canada's IT department, they got to work on a remote scoring system. Some of you might be familiar with Norm Proft, and he sort of spearheaded that at Skate Canada. And all interested officials in Canada were trained on the system. So not all of them did, but anybody who wanted to do some virtual officiating were able to. And again, all this training was done remotely on a Teams platform. So not Zoom, but Teams, which is what Skate Canada uses. And then, so that was one part, was the competitions, but we still have all our skaters who can't do their assessments. So this led to Skate Canada implementing a process for virtual assessments and a virtual assessment days. And I did many of these virtual assessments from the comfort of my home office, and not just BC skaters. So it was a very new and rewarding experience to communicate with skaters and coaches as far away for me as Prince Edward Island. That's roughly 6,000 kilometers and 4 time zones from my home. And there I was, they used their iPhone to film. We were on WhatsApp to get videos if the Wi-Fi was slow or something. And the first few times was perhaps a little hiccupy, but after that, it was a pretty smooth system. And all those skaters got to do their assessments like throughout the year. And what's interesting is we continue to do this for clubs in remote areas of the country where it's cost prohibitive to bring officials such great distance. So that little, the pandemic that created these virtual assessment days has actually been really beneficial, and we continue to do that in Canada. For instance, in British Columbia, where I am in the north, like it's a long way and very expensive to fly somebody up, one person, just to do some assessments. And now we can do them virtually if we need to. So the other thing we did, mostly near the beginning of the pandemic, when like nobody could go anywhere, we held a couple of Zoom calls with officials only, with the primary purpose simply being to touch base. So there was no technical aspect to any of this. No agenda other than to chat and find out how everyone was coping in isolation. And of course, checking out everyone's hair color. Because all our salons were closed. You couldn't do any of that, like nothing.
Yeah, it was pretty severe. Well, I wanted to switch gears here a little bit, and I know that you've done some virtual pair and dance seminars for officials. So why Sue just mentioned pairs, and I'm mentioning pairs and dance and asking you about those. Can you tell us why you also chose pairs and dance? And could you tell us a little bit about the webinars?
Okay, so we chose pair and dance mainly because in BC, we don't have many teams. And so our officials do not often have the opportunity to judge them, nor have in-person training. So Laura Carr did a pair one and I did a dance one, and they were spread over like 6 weeks and were specific to judging. So various platforms were used along with PowerPoint presentations. And there was, there's a picture of me, yes, with my little headset on. And like we used shared video files for sure. Like I showed a lot of dance, pattern dances and rhythm dances and free dances. And then they used Google Docs spreadsheets to put their marks in. We used a Google Jamboard for sharing discussion and questions between sessions. Those are a few things we did. Like my dance seminar, and this is just the BC section where I live, included participants from Dawson City, that's the Yukon Territory, 3,000 kilometers away. And then in the west to Invermere, which was like 800 kilometers, Kelowna, some of you have probably been there. And then the Lower Mainland Vancouver area, like that is pretty cool because these people really could not have come to an in-person dance or pair seminar without great expense. And like personally, most people can't do that. And for an organization to pay for individuals, of course we do that, but this was really an awesome way to do some training that way.
Okay. Yeah, so I've got a question about updates that you do. So I've participated in some of the updates, and they've been going on way before COVID, the updates that you've done virtually. So could you tell us when you do them and who are they geared for? Who is your audience, target audience?
Okay, so the target audience, can't talk. The target audience is always coaches and officials, so that everyone has the same information. We seldom do something just for technical or just for coaches or just for judges. Sometimes, of course, when it's specific learning, that is done that way. But updates are always including everyone. They're generally done sometime after our summer competition in August and before the first fall competition. So we get we can iron out wrinkles from summer competition and also have, by then, most of the wrinkles from Frankfurt have been ironed out as well. And then these updates are live streamed. We have a Skating in BC website, and they're streamed on that. And then viewers can actually send in like text. They can text their questions as we're going through it. And that's what you see on the screen is Sally and I did one. This was our COVID one in September 2020. And we're sitting a little further apart than normal, but and it was really well received. They're loaded to the Skating BC website afterwards. So if somebody missed it, they can go in and watch it, and they're also archived. So then the other thing we do is we use Zoom for technical panel sessions for our BC section level technical officials. So not everybody has the same opportunity to officiate at high domestic level, at our nationals, but within our region. So we have those officials as well. So we do practice sessions with them. We did via Zoom. And then also after Frankfurt, if there's major things, we do an update. This isn't live stream. This would be just for the technical officials to get any updates. So yeah, so before my time is up, I just I think some of what we say maybe sounds rather daunting. I don't know, like, how can I do this? But it was pretty simple to organize, and it's really, really worthwhile. So the reach across regions, countries, even continents, like we're doing today, it's quite mind-boggling when you think of it. And even though we think face-to-face is the dream situation, and in many cases, of course it is, but virtual learning has so much to offer to so many and makes the word, for me, the word equable so very attainable. So I really love the fact that the ISU e-learning has taken this on and is continuing to sort of champion it for all countries. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for joining us today, Janice. And I know you have a lot of experience as an official, but you've also been someone who's developed programs for skaters and officials for a long time. So we really appreciate you joining us today to share your knowledge and experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Next, we have two guest presenters. We have Lori Osborne and we have Loli Cazorla. And Lori is the chair of the officials training for U.S. figure skating. And Loli is the general secretary of the Argentine Ice Skating Federation. And she also coordinates training and updating of programs for officials. So Lori and Loli work together on a virtual project, and they're both here to share a little bit about that project. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
I think that I know that, first of all, Lori, I should say that the US has done a lot of webinars for officials and new judges. You did a webinar on program components and some mini sessions on pairs. I'd like to start first, though, by discussing the project that you two worked on together. And so, Loli, could you begin by telling us who was the judging webinar for that you did in collaboration, and what was the goal?
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me, and hello, everybody. I don't know if good morning, good evening, or good night. I'm here in Argentina. It's 9 in the night. Well, as you know, Argentina, being a country where the ice skating is in developing, we have a few judges. And the idea of this seminar was to increase the staff of judges, providing them the possibility of training in a very, very simple and efficient and very, very economical way. Our judges perform two different work in. We have a group of judges for leveling exams, tests, and we have judges for competition. The idea was to aim at former skaters and people who was involved in ice skating with basic knowledge and interested to learn and start to learning from the very basic levels to high categories. And by the other hand, we invited other judges to update their knowledge, especially because in 2021 we faced the changes in the ICU judging system, especially in components. We work in that way. We work. Lori can probably can tell you more details, but for us was very, very important her collaboration, because we have an agreement and a cooperation agreement with UFS and through their officials. And this time, Lori helped us, and I can tell you was amazing.
Great. So maybe we'll move on to Lori then. And Lori, can you tell us a little bit about how you set up the webinar and the content? I think you've got some slides to show us as well.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Beth. I think this was a great collaboration with the Argentina Federation and Loli. I know it was a very big course. It was 16 weeks of training, and basically the reason it was so long is because we had quite a few of the people that had signed up that were very new to judging, and we wanted to start with the basics and make sure they had those good, strong foundations. So we created a series of training sessions over this 16-week period that we basically built their foundation from testing and like what are on a moves in the field test or a free skate test, and talking about what they did for those tests and what was an acceptable passing level or a retry level. We then worked our way into the competitions and talking about GOEs and components and what the expectations were at different levels of skating. So over the course of this 13 weeks, we had a 1 hour, usually 1 to 1.5 hour training session via Zoom. I think we had a total of 9 candidates on each week, and we would go through that week's level. So for example, if we were looking at pre-silver, I'm sorry, it's going to be pre-silver, it would be like a juvenile level test, and we were looking at both the moves in the field and the free skates. We would walk through what are the expectations of those tests, and then we would watch 3 or 4 videos of different tests and talk through with these trial judge candidates what they saw and what they would have scored those tests. And then the faculty would weigh in and give their perspective and try and help them calibrate their scoring so that they were looking at the right things and identifying, you know, was that truly an edge going in and out of the rocker, the counter, or did they cheat that double toe loop or things like that. So we would have good discussions, and then they would get homework, and that homework was due the following week prior to the next training session. And we'd spend a few minutes at the beginning of the session talking about the homework, and then we would move on to the next level so that we were trying to constantly build their skills and knowledge. A couple of things we did. Yes, thank you for showing this. We set this all up through Google Drive, and you can see we had a folder for each week that we did homework. And after the session, the training session was over on Mondays, they would get a folder with a list of exam, like the forms that they needed, and then the videos that they were going to use to practice. And so they would go practice, and then we would come back and talk about them the following week. The other thing we did is we did a pre-examination to try and understand what our baseline was before we even started these training sessions. And then about halfway through, around the time of the national championships in Argentina, we did another exam just to check where everybody was at and understand what do we need to really focus on? Because when we were there for the in-person portion of this, we did some sessions at their national championships where they were practice judging at those national championships, and we were able to talk through some additional things, help them to continue their learning during that week at their nationals. We came back after nationals and finished out the sessions, and then did a final exam and awarded appointments after that. And those appointments were awarded based on the exams. And I think we awarded at least 8 appointments, if I remember correctly. Correct, Lolly? I think. Yeah. And so I think it was a really good learning experience for everybody. And we're hoping to do some continuation of that in the coming months and year.
So that was interesting because not only was it, sometimes we go to webinars or seminars and they're like, okay, we've got 2.5 days and you're going to be here for 10 hours at a time.
Right.
And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. To space it out like this probably gives people time to comprehend what you've said. And the other interesting thing I find is that it's really a hybrid model, because some of it was online and then you actually went to Argentina, correct?
Yes.
To do some live. Okay. So
Correct.
Loli, I have a question for you. I know that when in our earlier discussion, you talked about a lot of what Lori has just talked about. You really thought the elements were taught really well. What did you like in particular? Just maybe 1 or 2 things that you liked about the way the elements were taught online.
To me, I was found very interesting the way the way when the students once they watch the videos during the sessions and they place their marks, after that there was a discussion, and Lori, she as a judge, she talked about the things that a judge has to watch when he's judging an element. And you know, in Argentina we have low level categories of skaters, and they make many mistakes, and sometimes it's very difficult for judges, especially when they are starting, to see can judge the element, because it has many mistakes. So Lori helped us to watch specifically what a judge has to see in the before placing the mark. That was, to me, very interesting, very clarifying for the students. And I think Lori said, hopefully we will continue in this way. We are planning the second stage of the seminar for the next month before our nationals, because it's very important for that people that they continue training with me and in informal sessions. And we, during our next nationals, they will be trialing and again, they will have an exam. So it's very interesting.
I think I'll jump to Lori now. Lori, Janice talked about kind of like an update or a refresher at the beginning of the year that they do in British Columbia. And I know you do some kind of a refresher as well. Could you briefly tell us like what the refresher, how it's done, and who you're trying to refresh?
Yeah, sure. Most of our officials have some kind of annual rules review that they have to do in order to judge at a qualifying competition. For us, we have a difference of non-qualifying competitions and then qualifying. And the qualifying events are those that help them get to nationals, that progress for those top skaters, that they go through a series of competitions to get to nationals. And then there's other competitions that just happen throughout the year. And what we have instated in the last couple of years is that this rules review is done by all technical panel officials, all judges, referees, and accountants all have a rules review that they must do in order to participate in qualifying events. It is highly recommended for all of our non-qualifying officials as well. And the majority of them do actually participate and do those. But our tech panel actually has a minimum score that they have to hit, because we want those calls to be correct for both the skater and to make sure we've made the right call for the programs. But those are the assessments. They're done online. Everybody is sent an email each, usually towards the middle or end of June. And then they have to have those done before they participate in their first qualifying event. So our qualifying events run from July 15th through the middle of October. So they have to have those, and they are confirmed before they can participate in the competition.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to hear about another way to do some reviews in just a second. Loli, just one final question for you. We've been all collaborating and meeting together, you know, during COVID, big nations, small nations, developing nations, some nations with a long history of figure skating, you know, some people back to 1892. Can you tell us in a few sentences what you think we can all learn from smaller and developing skating federations like Argentina?
Beth, I think Loli had internet problems and got disconnected.
Well, I'll come back with her then. I just scrolled over and she was had vanished. So we might get a chance to hear from Loli a little later. If not, we have that same question for Heba coming up. So I wanted to thank both of you, though, for coming to visit us today on this webinar. And it was great to hear about the hybrid model that you use, so you combine virtual and in person. So it was a pleasure to have you both with us today. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the invite, Beth. It was great talking with you.
Great. Okay, so now we've had Janice and we've had Lori, and they gave different examples of refreshers for officials at the start of the season. And the next presentation is recorded. It's Lena Nexinen, who is on the ISU Singles and Pairs Committee, and she's going to tell us how the ISU technical committees have added opportunities for continuous learning. So it's not just a weekend, but we have opportunities for continuous learning for officials on the e-learning platform. And she'll also explain about the reappointment exercises and the process for reappointment for officials. And at the very end, she's going to share a bit of news. So here we go. If you could play that for us, please.
The whole idea of using e-learning started in 2018 when we were thinking of new ways how to encourage officials self-learning and offer more educational material. By officials, we mean referees, judges, technical controllers, and specialists. As you know, officials have to recertify after a certain period of time and refresh their knowledge. Previously, this was done in an in-person seminar. And of course, this added travel expenses for federations. The first step for us was to create referee reappointment material online. This reappointment material includes educational material and questionnaire where their participants are asked to answer a question and they get a feedback session where to find reference to a rule and more information about the content of the question. After a year, we produced judges reappointment online and then also technical panel recertification. Judges and referees can still join a live seminar or choose to do the reappointment online. I think personally that a mixture of these two is probably the best to take part both in in-person seminars and also online. Technical panel officials used to have their recertification in Frankfurt every 3 years. It included 1 day of seminar, and after that there was element identification exam and a written exam. With COVID, these kind of seminars were started to be done online, so that we had element identification organized in several online sessions, taking into consideration the different time zones. So we had sessions Asian time, European time, American time, and so on. In the element ID, the participants watch several programs and identify the elements and levels. In addition, they have to complete an online questionnaire with questions covering different rules. There are video clips with these questions. They need to watch the video clips and then answer the question. And these are very much scenario-based questions, so that it's really practical for the participants. Starting from this year, there will be separate reappointment materials and e-learning exercises. The ones that need reappointment take that section, and the ones who just want to refresh their skills and practice can take the learning exercises. Officials have enjoyed this opportunity to be able to do the exercises at their own time and from wherever they are located. It is a lifelong learning experience. For the technical committee, we are updating the exercises when there are new rules and guidelines that come up, and of course, try to find examples that are often asked during the meetings and competitions. We try to help and make the evaluation more fair and consistent. In the future, we are planning to offer educational material for national federations so that they could use that material in their own training sessions. The idea is also to concentrate not just on the junior and senior level, but also for the younger categories and their evaluation, giving a wider perspective on the evaluation and helping the different countries to develop their national level education. We really hope that our e-learning tools give inspiration for officials worldwide and make the evaluation better. It was very nice talking to you and seeing you all, and I wish you all the best for the upcoming figure skating season. Thank you.
Well, that was some exciting news, or at least I thought it was, about broadening the scope for national federations to be able to access some of the e-learning materials, because I know even in preparing for this webinar, a number of people said to me, you know, they weren't able to get onto the e-learning site, and they were able to get on, but they knew there was something else hidden behind there that they wanted to see. So this is really great news for national federations and opportunities for e-learning and virtual learning in the future. So good news. So right now I'd like to welcome our next guest, and our next guest is Mei Wu. Mei is the Secretary General of the Chinese Taipei Skating Union. Mei, it's very nice to have you with us today.
Beth, hi, all participants. It's nice to meet you all online today.
Great. So first, can you tell us, in your country, what about the restrictions, and how did that affect figure skating in particular?
As many special guests mentioned before, Taipei has the same situation, like closure of ice rink, cancellation or postponement of competition, especially limitations on spectators. So it caused a lot of frustration and disappointment among skaters, as well as for the federation staff members. So I guess it's a time we never want to go back.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, you took me and Elaine on a virtual tour of your skating union office and shared a bit about your national championships during COVID. And I remember being astounded when you told us that you decided in the middle of a pandemic that you were going to televise your nationals on live TV. I thought that was very brave of you. Could you tell us why you decided that you were going to do that, and just give us a brief overview of the setup that you created?
Thank you. Taipei decided to conduct a live event due to the challenge we just mentioned during the pandemic. So, but we got this idea and inspired from virtual judging Toolkit. And then we thought we could try it. So we have to thank you and Elena for creating this great tool. We would like to also thank to all invited international officials and judges from Korea, Australia, and one Taipei judge based in USA took this journey with us. We start with 2 trials in the office before live event. But Beth, you know, at the beginning, there was a chaos because we want to conduct a live event. We try to let judges and officials remotely control our tablets and computer in the office, and require them to have extra devices for online communications and competition music. We forced everyone to become a professional technician in that time. And my colleague, 2 of my colleagues were involved to make sure all remote judges and officials, they could have all information they need online, and how they such as lose internet, they need online to assist them immediately. For a technical panel, we would like to specially address on it. We need 1 local TS and one data operator on site to help input data for expert computer. So after all this careful preparation, luckily we allow all of them to follow the competition in real time, and score were televised on TV. So our local skaters were so encouraged, and audience was so surprised and have a very good viewing experience. Even though we have a careful coordination like this webinar, but always some challenges like lose internet, and we might lose judges officials during the live event. But overall, it's a wonderful experience. Still many thanks to all invite judges and officials again for their great teamwork and dedication to make this happen.
Yeah, I can only imagine how stressful that was to do a live competition and nationals on live TV. So kudos to you for coming up with that and following through and having it being successful. I just wanted to ask you about what kinds of now you've done this now we're moving forward. What kinds of activities would you like to see for your athletes and officials in the future?
As Argentina, as a developing member, so I could imagine it could be used for virtual feedback session for skater training. Also education activity and webinar for officials and judges, especially for Taipei. We only have single event. In Taipei, we don't have pairs and ice dance event. So if there are Taipei local officials and judges that want to learn other disciplines, I think they will it's a good tool and opportunity for them to use to learn.
Mm-hmm. And you've got these tools, these amazing tools that you developed. Do you have a kind of a very broad vision, maybe for the future of virtual events beyond, officials, or have you thought about that yet?
I think we could, we hope it could follow up the future direction of virtual toolkit. And extend its application on virtual event in the future. But of course, it need to be worked together by all participants and members of today's webinar together. Otherwise, Taipei cannot make it. So I hope it can be a tool and can be used for everybody in the future.
Well, great. I was interested to hear you as well say pairs and dance. So that's kind of something I'm hearing over and over again these last 2 weeks. So that'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years virtually. So May, it was great to meet you, and thanks so much for sharing your story with us today, and hope to see you again sometime online or in person.
Wish you have a great day too. Bye.
Thanks, May. Our next guest is Pascal Denis, and right now he is doing some choreography at this very moment. So we recorded his session earlier today. So Elena will share his recording from today, and you may have met Pascal before, but we'll introduce him now. Our next guest is Pascal Denis, and Pascal is a world-level coach and choreographer of both ice dance and synchronized skating. And today he is joining us from Vancouver, where he is doing some work. So thanks for joining us today, Pascal.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super happy to talk about this topic. I think it's very interesting since we're going and we're moving into a new age of everything. So I think it's a great opportunity to talk about it.
Super. Well, my first question is, I understand during prior to the pandemic, you were completely face-to-face in coaching and choreographer, and that involved both your teams in Montreal and abroad. Then the lockdown came and your rink was shut down and everyone was at home. So can you tell us what types of instruction or activities did you do on Zoom at the start for all your teams in Montreal and any teams you had abroad?
Well, And we had to be creative, first of all, to keep the skaters motivated. Like, I think that was the key at first. And that's why we started to use those Zoom classes. And we had like, so for my synchronized skating, for example, we did some Zoom for like some technicals. And we, first of all, like just went with reading the rules and like making them learn a lot more. But also I did skating skills with them. I started to make them learn like how to use the body and like each part, because when you're skating for so many years, sometimes you think that you've done it your whole life, so you forget sometimes the feeling. And it was actually very beneficial for them to go back to some basic techniques and mechanics, and being very also you have to be very creative. You have to be so I use like props, and I use bottles of water, glasses of water, like everything you could find in the house. We use the groom just to like hold ourselves, to have a bar or whatever. We used everything just to make sure that they could learn as much as possible with what we had. For some skaters that we had in ice dance that were from other countries, they had to go back to their countries. But they were in some countries able to skate. So we started to work on them for their programs that they already had at the moment. So it was okay. But then after, we had to develop more to learn to do other stuff with them. So.
Well, one of the things you mentioned, I was interested in it, you were talking about unison. So how did you work on that? Was that just, were you able to do that during the pandemic and the lockdown at home, or did you have to wait till you got back to the rinks?
No, actually we did on the floor. Like, it was in a way easier because, like I said, like being on the spot for the skaters, like they really had to use the body. And for me, having all the cameras and see everybody at the same time in the same position, like for example in synchro, was a lot easier to place everyone because everybody has different bodies and different feeling in their bodies. So they were able to actually also see themselves on the camera and see how they were placed. So it corrected a lot of things. And I think that actually became a big part of their future success after.
Okay. So they did all this work at home, and then finally they were back on the ice, but you still couldn't travel to other countries. So how were you able to do choreography and coach? Well, first of all, I was wondering about elements virtually. And maybe choreography was different. I'm not really sure. And also the camera. I mean, I know when we had our discussions prior, you mentioned cameras. So maybe a little bit about elements, choreography, and how cameras played a role in your instruction virtually.
Yeah. Well, actually, on I will say Zoom, but on any platform that we used, I was able to do pretty much everything. Like I said, like I did on the floor when ice was not accessible. For choreography, same thing. I did choreography in my living room using props again, like using some vase and just like pretending that this is the partner, because I was coaching couples and still being alone at home because we were not allowed to have visitors either. So that was also limiting, but really worked out. Like, I was able to do everything with this. Of course, you have to be very visual when this is your only way of communicating. So then I had to draw a lot of patterns and make sure that they would see what I want, where I want, like showing them lines that I would get from images anywhere. We did also, like I said, like nose choreography. I did choreography sometimes when I was able to go on the ice. I would sometimes show them on the ice, send them the video, because I'm still doing this actually at the moment. I still do some Zoom choreography because of a lack of time and with the traveling and everything. Also, like I coached competitions. I coached ISU Grand Prix, like NHK Trophy. I did by Zoom with one of the couples. All the official practices, even the warm-up, we did. There was different ways, of course. For this, for example, for the warm-up, it would be a coach holding an iPad and being my eye at the rink, and then this way, like standing still by the board. We had the chance, like working with some people in China, where we had someone that was following them on the ice, so we could see a different point of view. but also we had some other couples, like one of our Japanese team, they couldn't get a coach in because Japan was completely closed at the time, but they were able for a special event, and they had a camera that was like actually following them on the ice. There was an app that we were using at the time. It's still good. I know like there've been others, but the one that we used was called a Tapo. So it was like a small camera that you put by the board, and the camera would follow their movement on the ice. So this way we didn't need an extra person to do it. And lately, like we still have some skaters, like for different reasons, that go abroad or they go on somewhere else and they still want to skate, and we use other apps. There is another one we use, this pivot, whatever. So then it's still working pretty well, and we're able to almost be there without being there. So it's pretty efficient.
So is that the kind of app or camera where I've seen them on, you know, different media platforms where you can actually, it feels like you're skating behind the skater? Is that kind of the same sensation you get?
More or less, because the camera is standing, but I can, with the app, I can zoom and get closer to the skater. And I control the camera sometimes also. Some other apps I'm controlling. So I have like on the app, I have some kind of a remote, and then I'm turning the camera, I'm zooming in, or so this way. And but of course, like if you want to have like optimal results, I would ask them to move the camera sometimes to see from a different perspective to make sure that everything is complete, since it's more 2 dimensions instead of being around. So that would be something I would change, but in general, it was working pretty well.
So, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard of that before until you mentioned it. So some of the simpler tools you mentioned, like charts or pictures and photos and that kind of thing, as well as, you know, you positioning yourself. So it's kind of a variety of very simplistic tools to much more sophisticated tools that you've used since you started doing more virtual things. So, okay, great. So, it seems like there's a little bit of a transformation that you've made, going to like kind of a hybrid model. Of course, you want in-person coaching and choreography as much as you can. I mean, we all want to be back on the ice, that's for sure, for competitions, coaching, for anything, mentoring. But I was wondering if you could tell us maybe some of the benefits that you've seen with a hybrid model, like you personally, and maybe going forward.
Right. The first big positive point is the time, of course, because then Zoom, I say Zoom, like I said, but like any virtual, I can do anytime in the day. I've done things at midnight. I've done things. So even with the time change, it's never a problem, basically. So this is really helping. It's a lot like cost effective, like it's a lot cheaper, and it helps like when the budget is not completely there. Like you said, of course, the in-person will nothing will be as good as that, but I think it's, now that we have this opportunity, I think it's very important to use it as much as possible. And I'm still using it like for many things, like choreography. Sometimes I would go and do the first draft of the choreography, and then after I would do the follow-up on Zoom. So a lot easier, like I can make some corrections, like, which is the easiest thing to do on Zoom, is to have something already built. But when it's not the case, like you saw, like everything is possible. Like we've done everything from lower level to high level skaters. So that's good also. I think it's very good also for so many things like mentorship that I'm able to do with some people all over the world. And we don't need to be in person to do a meeting like we're doing right now. We're not in the same room, and we're able to share and to get some benefits out of it. So,
yeah. So, so would you say that there are a lot of benefits, but the one maybe that you would think the most was you've already done a program, and now you're using it virtual to like polish or fine tune things. Is that maybe one of the most effective ways to use it?
I think choreography wise, yes, I think it's the best way. But right now at the moment, like not today, but I mean like in these weeks, I'm actually doing a program in another country. Like I've never met the skaters, the coach like a few years ago, but the skaters never, and I'm doing choreography for them. And we have a language barrier, but we still make it. We find our ways. Like I said, it's you have to be creative in everything, whether it's the language, whether it's the way to show and make them learn images with choreography. Everything's possible. You just have to really think and make sure your communication skills are at the best for what you have. But it's possible to do from beginning till the end without even knowing the people.
And I was interested when you said about the mentorship. So it's the mentorship of coaches. Like you're a really experienced coach in both dance and synchro. So what kinds of things can you help maybe a coach with virtually that would work?
Well, from everything, like from strategies, from looking at programs, they would send me videos and I will analyze. I can help like for skating skills, like giving exercise, I sound like just trying to help as much as possible in those ways. And also we know that our ISU rules in general are in English, and then people get translations in their own countries. Sometimes it's not as clear, so it's helping a lot of people to go back and we reread the rules together and making sure that everybody understands well, and we can get to competitions with everybody with the same chance of knowing and learning the right way.
Yeah, great. Well, you know, I have to say you've really opened my eyes about all the different ways you can use them. And I guess I'm not surprised that a creative choreographer would think of creative ways to use all these visual tools. So I really appreciate you sharing them all with us, and maybe we'll have a chance to learn some more and talk another time. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Well, that was very interesting, certainly from the coach perspective and from dance and synchro, which we don't hear quite as much about. So yeah, I think maybe Elena, I'm not sure if you have the opportunity to type some of those resources in the chat, but if you have them, please do. And if not, if someone was interested in some of those apps he was talking about, then if you don't see it in the chat, then you could send Elena a message, and she could put her email in the message so you can find out those apps in case you weren't able to see them. So in the chat. So anyway, today, now our final guest today is Heba Gerges, and Heba is president of Ice Skate Egypt. And I know these past few years, Heba's been coordinating activities not only in Egypt, but also helping the ISU to coordinate activities in the Middle East as well as Africa. So it's so nice for you to be with us today, Heba.
Thank you so much, Beth. I'm really honored to be with you today and with such an esteemed panel. Very impressed with everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So you're kind of a little bit special situation here, because in 2020, you were in the process of fulfilling your requirements to become a provisional ISU member. And I know you'd done one national championship live, and then you needed one more. Then all of a sudden the pandemic struck. So you were probably thinking, what now? How did you overcome that challenge and keep the process moving along?
Thanks. So exactly as you said, after our 2019 nationals that was held in person, we had plans to do our second nationals because you're required to do 2 nationals at least to apply for ISU provisional membership. COVID hit, and the world shut down, and then we're like, okay, what now? So basically, like everything going virtual, I started looking into the virtual option, And as Janice mentioned, Norm Proft, I was guided to contact him by our advisor. And I reached out to Norm, and he was very helpful and very enthusiastic. And he said, yes, I will connect you to the exactly right person who would help you with that. And he led me to meet with Sally Horick. And then I had a meeting with Sally and the whole ISU virtual event team. So that was, the beginning of this project, really, and the team was very helpful. And they advised that, the skaters could submit their videos. The competitors can submit their videos according to, the guidelines, and then the judging would happen virtually. Using, the IGS system and the virtual events toolkit. So that's basically what we did. It was very helpful. Sally also advised us that during this competition, that we include our development levels, our learn to skate skaters, so that the ISU would also see how we are developing the sport in Egypt. So that being said, we had 3 tracks for our competition. And this is our figure skating, we call it the pyramid of progression, since, Egypt and the pyramids, so we got to follow the theme. So basically the base of the pyramid has our foundational levels, and then they go to the freestyle levels. There's the rising sun, and then there are like 8 obelisk levels. So basically, this is our learn to skate curriculum. These are our levels. So this was one track, and we refer to it as the Key of Life Festival. Everybody was welcome, hence it was called the festival. The other track we had was the ISU levels, novice to senior. And then the last track was also the adult levels according to the ISU guidelines. So these were the 3 tracks that we used for our championships. So in total, we had 26 skaters, 26 Egyptian skaters that lived in 6 countries. The videos that were submitted were recorded in 12 different rinks. And the panel on the live judging meeting in itself, we had 14 countries represented. The panel was quite international. We were so honored to, to have the help of the ISU virtual team in helping us recruit this ISU panel from all around the world. So it was quite a successful event, and it immediately after that event, we applied for our provisional membership, and we received it. So we're now a member.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was a big congratulations
Success.
and a lot of effort, that's for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I had been thinking about the pandemic. I mean, it made the world a lot smaller for all of us. We were like stuck in our houses and not able to go anywhere. But sometimes it also felt like the world got a little bit bigger, and we connected with people that I think I wouldn't have had a chance to connect with, like you. So I don't think that would have happened unless there'd been a pandemic. So can you tell us what was it your experience like connecting with some of the people in the figure skating community?
Yeah, I exactly as you said, it was an amazing experience because everybody in the skating community, we all went through the same phases, and with all the many examples you've heard today, everyone has been very helpful. I mean, we, like as a federation, I never thought that we'll be exposed to that amount of ISU officials, yourself, Sally, and, all the panel, the virtual team that we had. We even had Lena attended our nationals, and she's a member of the technical committee. So that was incredible to get that exposure and connections with, and we made friends all over the world. We had Peru, Argentina, Mexico, many countries in Europe. So it was really fascinating to see how much everyone was willing to help. After we finished that competition and the judging, the idea came that we take it to the next level and we have commentary, right? So as you saw in the short video that we had Ted Barton and Kevin Reynolds as commentators. And again, this was quite an honor that, they agreed to do commentary on such an event. So they made it extremely informative. It started from like the lowest levels, the 4-year-olds that just stepped on the ice and have only been skating for a few months, all the way to the senior skaters. And they made it educational to the fans, to the parents. We're a new skating community. So it was very enjoyable and very informative. And the fact that it was an online event, it's basically a link that we launched, it premiered, and we had, like everybody was watching it at the same time. And it was quite a successful event. We tried to make it as enjoyable and as real as possible. And with everyone's help, it was.
So that the idea of the commentary sounded like it really made it informative, because I imagine not a lot of people know a lot about figure skating in Egypt. So
Yes.
you'd gain exposure, and you would, educate people so they would be able to enjoy figure skating a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. I asked this question to Loli earlier, and she didn't quite have a chance to finish, but I asked Jorge last week from Peru as well. What do you think developing nations like Egypt bring to us, to the skating community, that we can all learn from? Because we all in this process learn from each other, but in this case, I want to know, what can we learn from you as a developing nation?
As a developing nation, I mean, we're trying to utilize the resources that we have wisely. So one thing we have learned as a federation, that having online presence is very important. So we have a website, it's in English, and we post everything on our website. So for example, this is the full broadcast to our last nationals, which by the way was also virtual. So this was our third. So between that and our social media presence, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, we post everything. We try to make it enjoyable and educational, and we connect this way through the bigger skating community around the world, and also our small audience in Egypt. So again, like this is, for example, like these are things that we did in the last few weeks. I led the camp in Middle East, for Middle East and South Africa, and at the ICE Lab. All our projects are posted, so it's good for everyone to see, and it helps our community a lot to keep everyone up to date and to keep everyone informed. And for the ISU also to see with our application, like they saw that we're very active, they saw the level of information we post, and it helped a lot. So
yeah, I would certainly say when I go on Facebook or whatever, Egypt is really a big presence there. So you certainly made your presence felt there.
thanks.
Yeah, on social media. So that's really amazing.
Thank
So I would really like to thank you for sharing your amazing story, that in the middle of COVID, you became an ISU provisional member, and all the
Thanks
things
to you.
yeah. And all the things that you've done since with social media, and developing a really thorough development for your skaters to move through. So you're not just focused on the competitive skaters, but you're really building as a developing nation from the bottom up. So congratulations to you, and we hope to work with you again virtually in the future, maybe even in person, because we've actually never met in person yet.
I'd love to. Yes, unbelievable, right? We did 2 virtual nationals, and we have not met, but one lucky day.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks for joining us very much, Eva.
Thank you so much, Beth.
All right, so that's the end of our presenters today, and we really wanted to celebrate the flexibility and the creativity and passion of our skating family, and we all came together to create some innovative projects to keep our sport alive when we were all shut down. So I hope that you've been inspired by some of these projects that you've heard, and you'll try some of them going forward. And I know that feel free to reach out to Elena. I think Elena will put in her e-learning address in the chat. So if you have a question about any of these projects or any of these apps, please feel free to reach out to Elena, and she will try and put you in touch with the right person to give you some guidance as you try out some virtual activities. Last week, we had some equally inspiring stories from Peru, Canada, Norway, Italy, and some ideas from the synchro world. So all of these ideas and projects are going to be made into a video, and they will be posted on the ISU Development YouTube channel. And there's going to be another webinar coming up in a few weeks, and that'll be on the virtual tech panel practice. So if you have people that are tech panel members who need some training, or maybe they're going to be taking an examination, this will give you some ideas, along with the how to do the very important role of virtual data entry, that if you know the codes for the elements, you would be able to do it. You don't need to be an ISU data operator to learn how to do it virtually. So look for that coming up. And in about an hour from now, we're going to have a webinar on the Einlon scoring system. And that will give you the opportunity to maybe to create some online activities for your skaters and officials. So I'd like to thank everyone who joined us today as presenters, and everyone who joined us today online. And I look forward to seeing you again, either virtually or hopefully in person. So thanks for joining us.